welcome if you're new to this room. We'll do the last half of the last part of the conference, and we'll resume with Harry to talk about managing API teams. The floor is yours.
Thanks a lot. I have a bad habit of focusing on the microphone, so please excuse me if I'm shifting left and right. Welcome to the room. So my name is Harry. Currently 20 years in tech leadership. I jumped in very early thanks to my mentors. So I'm mostly exposed to the tech and leadership. Besides that, I have a few hobbies. We can take them offline for our networking. I'm focusing right now on strategy and empowerment. So I'm considered an expert in this area, and I'm helping businesses to grow. My biggest chunk of my career was for the digital IT services. And right now I'm jumping into a smaller, mid-sized insurance business to help them elevate to the next step. Besides that, I have a small firm, so I'm doing some consulting and coaching through that, and I'm hoping to grow my business there. In any case, that's enough about me. What I want to talk about is about the teams that we're all managing and the challenges we have for the APIs as a product and not as a project. And I see that error being done very commonly in the big business. So what I was aspiring since the very first time that I started managing the API teams 4 or 5 years ago, I saw that the tech was more pushing into people facing APIs as a very finite waterfall project. And it's funnily enough as well not to be able to fit the DevOps word into managing that part as not as a project but something else. But at the end of the day, it's a project. And I like to use actually numbers behind that. So as you all know, the APIs are the engine of our modern economy. And basically everything from your phone to your laptop to everything, it's an API. The data I'm using right now here, I'm pasting the sources so you know that it's not something coming out of my mind, and they're all up to date until October 2025. We see in a very good use case that the revenue produced in Expedia is generated through APIs, which is a very interesting business model. 65% of the organization now generate revenue directly from their APIs, so monetization is quite strong, and it's getting bigger and bigger, and we're talking about a 14 trillion economy in the global market, and that will be scaling up until 2027. So you understand that how important it is for your teams to perceive this as not just a revenue stream, but something more that connects them to the real world. And I usually use examples like, your phone is using basically APIs as well. It's not something completely distant and not part of your daily life. And I think that makes it more interesting for your /project manager product owners. As you see, and this is becoming more interesting from my experience, and that's depicted as well by the State of the API report of Postman, the backbone is under immense pressure. And what is very interesting is that right now, it seems like that almost 9 out of 10 developers are using AI, but only 24% of APIs are designed for the AI agent. So the future is not ready for what we want to do with the AI and AGI later on, which is like in the next 5 years probably. 93% of teams are struggling with the API collaboration, and that's leading to a lot of overlapping work and work and delay. So time to market, I think, is the new phrase, the new concern for everybody involved. 51% of developers cite unauthorized AI agent access as their number one security concern, and I think your InfoSec is more coming to that part. And we want to have an API-first development, and so it's accelerating 12% from the last year, and demanding is more and faster. More numbers. Your new customers are not human, and your APIs are not ready on the other side. So that's what we discussed in the previous slide. This mismatch has real consequences. The AI agents rely on precise machine-readable signals, not just some tribal knowledge, and we're not able to supply that yet. So let's see how the new work. The root of the problem isn't our tools, it's our thinking. And that's what I was describing before, that the mindset regarding the APIs is that we treat them as finite projects. They are not. They're a live human being, they have a life cycle. People tend to perceive them again as a project, but we need to go more for the future. There's more AI demand, more security, and more sprawl. I mean, you have tremendous vast of vendors to go through, probably discussing the same thing in the background. As I said, the project has a start and an end. It's not about completion, it's about a business that's in a continuous loop. So from start to end, we want to have a build connection and meet the deadline and deploy, and this is an iterative process. The big idea. So lead it as a product, as we mentioned, and I like to have this new DevOps logo that I'm using a lot with the team, just to show them exactly how it fits in a more DevOps-oriented or agile environment. And then this is the most important chart that I actually showed to my team. So we did, on the left side, you see the consequences when you look at it as a project mindset for the API lifecycle, and then how would it be as a product mindset, right? So we're not thinking from inside out, but from outside in, and what does that mean for everybody? Everybody heard, and especially in the metrics column, I didn't include it here, how do we measure a high performer developer for our own teams that we manage? And you probably heard the DevOps, the DORA metrics, right? What I want to make the managers focus on is not just about, how many push and pull requests we had, what was the code of quality. That's fine. That's a measurable impact and might show a picture. But at the end of the day, your business has a significant connection to revenue streams. Customer satisfaction, that we rarely take into account, at least for the examples that I've seen in the big business, and the time to first scope. So how fast are we to adopt a change, and how fast we're going with that one? I'm interpreting that one for the team, and it sounds a little bit cold, as to how effective we were to increase our revenue from the business that we actually have ahead of us. Luckily, I had businesses where the business was growing, so more partners and more API integrators were coming in. That metric was useful there. Then I had the 5-5-5 principle, and I'm still evangelizing that one. So 5 minutes to have your API access, 5 hours to have it in your sandbox environment, and 5 days to have it implemented. No matter what technology you use it as a compass. Users don't want to wait to be onboarded on an API. They want to have everything ready in like a few clicks. And that's also a very important aspect behind the developer portals you might be managing, or a team that is raising a ticket and staying there for too long. Now, regarding the team, when we see the end of the light of the tunnel, usually the team tends to sit around in a corner and say, okay, I delivered my job, fine. When in the product mindset, you have a continuous and dedicated loop. And I understand that probably well from your own experience, that these people that are sitting there for 20, 25 years doing the same thing, code and code again, they want to stick on this waterfall approach. Let's try to switch that and show them the value of what it means on this continuous feedback. So if the results that are coming in are more positive and more focused, they see the reward on their own hands. Yeah, and depending on your line management experience, that could be converted as bonus or some kind of a more tangible effect. Put your user feedback as well into the picture. Sometimes people are struggling with the backlog and the prioritization. Just delete it if it's too much. Make sure to have the user feedback as your next items. How do I improve my product based on the user feedback that I'm receiving? And it's very important that your ticketing system allows this loop. I don't want to say product names. There are products in the market that are doing an excellent job in incident management. Actually, we're filling all the ITIL and waterfall management techniques, but how can we convert it an item that we can work in through the product ownership? And this is not something that needs to be technical at the first glance. You don't want the user to know everything technical about your product, but through that, you can interpret it to real actionable goals, like being faster, being more reliable, having better latencies, and so on and so on. That could lead you to huge scenarios of even disaster recovery scenarios. And the perspective, as I explained, just in this way, we're just going more and more without consumption adoption and the perspective of what job needs to be done based on that. Now, the path forward. So as we talked about, you have a structure, the platform, you have your team, which is the heart of what you're trying to do. We'll focus on that. And then you measure it based on the value that we have. Like something that, again, converts to something that is motivational, not only for you and your management, but also for your people. So another thing that I like to show is that it's on the right solution, on the right side of the screen, yes. So we have a lane where your central team or the teams are performing. They don't need to be in parallel. Most of the times you see there's the cars I put right there in opposite directions. Your job is to somehow be the traffic guy in the middle, or traffic person, that manages to combine those streams together. A central team usually sets global policies. That doesn't fit everything. That's where the conflict is coming. Be more agile into your environments and provide that. And I understand standardization is the holy grail for many big businesses, but we're entering an era where we need to be more agile and more flexible. So think of your architecture in a more modularized and more simple way. Slice the elephant at the end of the day. It's, I think, the era of the dead global policies, to be fair, apart from your infosec requirements. So this is where I end up as well, the Wild West. I like this thing. So for the people, it's not a project, it's a product team. You wouldn't ship a flagship product without a product manager. That's my perception, at least, in my opinion. We can discuss about it. Why do it for your APIs? So when you look at it, this is the life cycle I'm picturing here. Right? You have your API product manager, and this is a product manager or product owner. It's the CEO of that API, the governor, the visionist, the Steve Jobs of your solution. You have an API architect. I'm using the word API because usually in the team, in the Scrum team, you can imagine, right? You can visualize it on your head, but we don't have the word API. Here we're talking about API-driven people. You have your API developer and the API evangelist. The evangelist actually is the advocate for your consumers. This could be a cross-functional role. So in your case where you have a Scrum Master that you don't know what to do anymore because somebody is disputing the position, make them an API relationship manager. That's why I'm calling them API evangelist. You can find in your sphere better words for that. But that's the person who's actually the one talking to your customers, getting real feedback and not just relying on somebody clicking on a survey form and saying, hey, hi, I have a problem. Because usually it's a complaint tool rather than a praising tool. So your evangelist can go and regularly, I don't know, every quarter or every month, select a few customers, your top consumers basically, and get their feedback. That was very useful. In the beginning, I had the struggle of how to justify an extra headcount on my team, but I was able to actually squeeze up even more revenue thanks to this person because it brought more use cases for me. Yeah, that's the team that I was more or less thinking about. Now, from counting endpoints to creating value. So the developer experience and adoption is also an important metric. Apart from the adoption, you need to have happy developers. Make a study about, with your leadership, what tools would make their life easier. I think the bigger the corporate, that's a more challenging task. Don't leave them with, I don't know, crocodile solutions coming from the 20th century. Go to the next step. Engineering velocity will increase, so you have an increase in productivity, so focus on that. And that you will see, at least on the real data, we saw some business impact that led to a 43% of fully API first facing. And I think that's very important for the business as it stands today, to see it in the real tangible data that I can share the slides with you if you really wanted to use them for your own application. For me, and that's where we conclude, the result is always a strong, visible, resilient backbone, which is your people. Yeah, this is what I wanted to put here in the best way. And that integrates on this lane of things, of data that we're discussing about, which leads from your e-commerce, your mobile apps, partner ecosystems, and AI-driven insights. If you're not streamlining this way the thinking of the team, I think all of these 3-4 dependencies you see there will probably be extremely problematic and not very well connected. But this is how you scale and scale in a nice way. Right now, I'm sitting on that first bullet point. I'm exactly at the chaos to cohesion point, right, in the business that I actually entered. And I'm trying to help the team boost exactly that feeling. So from the DHL where we did the group APIs 7 years for big projects still ongoing, but we managed to come somehow in this direction. I'm trying to bring the same learnings and the same examples, right? Don't think about costs. I'm going straight down to the point. Think of the light for you at the end of that. Like, so what is the value creator, right? Okay, it's nice to have a cost and benefit, but sometimes the investment is actually worth it, unless you cannot measure it, and then if you follow your intuition. So measurable business impact it is for me. Like, you need to have your measurements. APIs are your organization's future. So again, another beautiful picture to show your senior leadership. Think of it as a project. If you think of it as a project, you're going to end up basically in a spaghetti of different microservices and monoliths that you have to manage. Your invisible backbone is the most critical strategic asset you have. I will emphasize on that. The organizations that thrive will be those whose leaders choose to build it, not just to connect it. And you need entrepreneurs into your team and treat them as entrepreneurs as well. So this is where we conclude. If you have any questions, I will be happy to take them.
Do you have any questions? Maybe I have one regarding the product, the last slide. When you said that you consider your API as a product, it's like an internal product, or how do you?
It's actually, it depends on the API, right? So the internal APIs are usually treated as something that people don't see, so we don't touch. I would like to consider those as well. Cost perspective, however, says that it's too difficult to face and justify. There is a way that you can measure that, right? So there are many teams that are doing things in parallel internally where you treat them as projects, and at the end the overhead is great. In large organizations, that happens too often. There you can build a use case and see what is this overlapping work, converting to Mondays, and then you can say, okay, I can make it a product as well. Sometimes this is a very risky move, so you need to measure how you want to do that and lead to the product. I think for the external facing APIs, you always need to consider it as a product because there is direct connection to revenue.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions from the audience? So thank you very much for your talk.
Thank you.